You ever notice how a man can be composed, rational, maybe even stoic, until a certain kind of woman walks into the room? Suddenly his voice changes, his posture straightens. He starts fumbling words he used to command. It's almost like something invisible took over. The question is, why? Why do men lose control around women like this? It's not about beauty alone. There are beautiful women everywhere. You can scroll through social media and see hundreds of stunning faces in less than 5 minutes. But there's something deeper about this type of woman. It's not what she wears, though she wears it well. It's not what she says, though every word feels deliberate. It's her energy, how she carries herself, what she knows about herself, and how little she needs to prove it. When a woman like that enters a room, she doesn't demand attention. She receives it. And that difference right there is where everything shifts. She's not chasing validation. She's rooted in it. Her power doesn't scream. It hums. It vibrates softly but deeply, like a frequency men can't resist tuning into. And once they do, they rarely know how to turn it off. You see, men are not as complex as they like to think. They respond to cues, emotional, visual, energetic. When a woman moves like she's whole, like she doesn't need saving, something primal wakes up inside a man. It's not lust alone. It's intrigue, respect, even a touch of fear. He's drawn to her but also unsettled by her because she represents something he can't easily control. And control is where men feel safe. The moment they lose it, they start calling it intense, confusing, or too much. But really, it's just the feeling of meeting someone who doesn't orbit their ego. Let's talk about presence. Because that's what separates a woman like this from everyone else. Presence isn't about being loud or commanding. Wherever you something, purity, words. When she listens completely. She's not looking over your shoulder to see who's more important in the room. Her attention is currency, and when a man receives it, he feels richer than he knows how to admit. But the moment she withdraws it, he feels poor again. That's why men lose control, because her validation feels like oxygen. And he doesn't realize how addicted he's become until she takes a breath for herself. Now, let's get real. Some men will call this manipulation. They'll say she's playing games, or she knows what she's doing. But that's projection. The truth is, she doesn't need to manipulate anyone. Her power isn't in what she takes from men. It's in what she refuses to give away. Her peace, her boundaries, her self-worth. She doesn't perform femininity for approval. She embodies it. And that difference unsettles men who are used to being the source of validation. There's also something magnetic about mystery, not secrecy, but mystery. A woman who doesn't overshare, who isn't desperate to be understood, who lets silence do some of the talking. That's rare. Men aren't used to it. In a world where everything is displayed, a woman who keeps something for herself feels sacred. It's like he's standing before a locked garden. And the key isn't persuasion, it's patience. But most men don't know how to wait. So they rush, they chase. They lose control trying to capture something that was never meant to be captured, only appreciated. Confidence plays its part too, but not the kind that's loud or performative. Her confidence comes from experience, from having fallen apart before and rebuilt herself. You can see it in her eyes. She's been disappointed, but not destroyed. She's learned to protect her softness without hardening her heart. That balance is what makes her irresistible. Men sense it, the emotional depth, the intelligence, the maturity. It's not what she shows, it's what she's survived. And when she looks at him, he feels seen in a way that scares him, because she's not impressed by his image. She's watching his character. Some men will try to match her energy, to mirror it, thinking that's how they'll win her over. But she can feel when someone's performing. Authenticity recognizes authenticity, and that's another reason they lose control. because they can't fake their way into her world. To connect with her, they have to strip down emotionally, not physically. They have to show honesty, vulnerability, real intention. For a lot of men, that's uncomfortable territory. They're used to power through control, not through surrender. But around her, control doesn't work. She demands sincerity without ever asking for it. Her presence alone does that. And if a man gets too close, if he starts feeling emotions he can't name, he might pull away. He might call her too independent, too intimidating, or too complicated. But those words are just disguises for "I couldn't handle how she made me feel." Because what she awakens isn't weakness, it's truth. She forces reflection, and not every man is ready for that. Now let's not pretend this is some fairy tale dynamic. These women, the ones who move with that quiet, magnetic force, they've earned that energy. They've been through heartbreaks that stripped them of illusions. They've loved men who didn't know what to do with their strength. They've been misunderstood, underestimated, maybe even shamed for being too much. But every time they rebuilt, not softer, not colder, just clearer, and clarity is power. That's what radiates when they walk into a room. That's what men feel before they even know why. So when men lose control around women like this, it's not just attraction. It's recognition. Somewhere deep down, he knows he's in the presence of something authentic, something that doesn't need him but could choose him, something that mirrors his potential while exposing his insecurities. And that duality of desire and discomfort is what makes it so consuming. He wants to impress her, but he also wants to be better around her. He wants her approval, but he knows it can't be bought. He's not used to that. Most men aren't, and let's be honest, she's not flawless. She has her own chaos, her own contradictions. But she owns them. That's what makes her human, not unreachable. She's not trying to be worshipped. She's trying to be understood. Yet, understanding her requires more than charm. It requires emotional depth. Most men confuse confidence with dominance. She knows the difference, so when they try to overpower her energy, they fail. The only way to truly connect is to meet her with equal awareness, with honesty, with stillness. Anything less dissolves in her presence. So why do men lose control around women like this? Because they're meeting a mirror they didn't expect. She reflects back everything they could be, everything they fear, everything they desire, and she does it without even trying. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't argue, she outgrows. She doesn't beg, she releases. And that kind of woman, the one who knows her worth and walks in it, will always shift the room. She doesn't need to demand control, because she already has the one thing most people spend their whole lives searching for, herself. The thing about her presence is that it lingers. Even after she's gone, it stays. You'll see men go quiet after talking to her, replaying what she said, how she looked at them, how she didn't rush to fill the silence. That silence is powerful, because in a world where everyone's trying to impress, she lets stillness do the talking. And in that quiet space, men realize how loud their own insecurities are. She exposes them without a single word, not out of cruelty, but because truth just follows her around. She can't hide it, and she doesn't try to. You'll hear men describe her as mysterious, but that's not really it. She's not hiding, she's selective. She gives her time, her laughter, her softness, but not her peace. And when a man senses that boundary, that invisible line he can't cross unless he's genuine, and it does something to him. It disarms him. He can't use charm or status or promises to get closer. He has to show something real. And most men don't know how to do that because the world never taught them how. They were taught to conquer, not connect. When he tries to impress her, she smiles not out of arrogance but understanding. She's seen this before. The grand gestures, the sudden intensity, the infatuation that burns too fast. She knows it's not love, It's curiosity mixed with desire. She's learned to tell the difference between being wanted and being valued. So she moves carefully, not because she's afraid, but because she respects herself enough not to gamble her peace for someone's potential. That restraint drives men crazy. They're not used to women who don't rush toward them. They mistake her calm for disinterest, but it's actually confidence. She knows what she brings, and she's not afraid to wait for what matches it. And that waiting, that patience, is what unravels men, because it puts them in unfamiliar territory. They're used to being the chooser, but around her, they realize they're being observed too. She's not just reacting, she's evaluating, watching how he treats the waiter, how he speaks about his ex, how he handles small disappointments. She listens between his words, and when he feels that awareness, it shakes him, not because she's judging him, but because she sees him. His patterns, his ego, his softness, all of it. Most men aren't used to being seen without performance. They crave it but fear it at the same time. You can't fake depth around a woman like this. She'll feel it instantly. You can tell her what she wants to hear, and she'll smile politely, but her intuition will whisper the truth. That's another thing that throws men off her intuition. It's not mystical, it's experience sharpened into instinct. She's paid for it with heartbreak and self-reflection. She knows energy doesn't lie, even when words do. So when a man says one thing but feels like another, she doesn't argue. She just distances herself. That quiet withdrawal, that unannounced goodbye, hits harder than any confrontation, because men realize too late that she doesn't chase what confuses her peace. Her power doesn't come from dominance, it comes from discernment. That's what makes her unforgettable. She doesn't compete, she selects. She doesn't cling, she releases. And that composure, that ability to let go with grace, is something most people can't do. Men lose control because they're not used to someone who can walk away without resentment. They expect tears, explanations, drama. Instead, she gives them silence. And silence is the one thing they can't argue with. It forces reflection. It makes them question themselves. There's also something about how she handles attention. She accepts compliments, but doesn't feed on them. She knows the difference between admiration and validation. So when a man tries to win her with flattery, it falls flat. What catches her attention is substance, thoughtfulness, consistency, emotional intelligence. She doesn't need grand gestures. She needs presence. That confuses men who are used to shortcuts. They think attraction can be negotiated, but with her, it can't. It has to be earned slowly through honesty, and in that slow unfolding, men find themselves more invested than they expected to be. They start changing little things, not because she asked them to, but because being around her makes them want to level up. She doesn't demand growth, she inspires it. Her energy makes men reflect on their own. They start noticing their tone, their patience, their integrity. They begin realizing how rare it is to meet someone who doesn't need fixing, only understanding. And that realization can feel overwhelming, because now he can't go back to surface-level connections. Once you've experienced depth, everything else feels shallow. That's what she does. She shifts perspective. She makes ordinary attraction feel small. She raises the standard without ever mentioning it. And let's talk about the softness she carries. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. She's learned that true power doesn't need to armor itself all the time. Her softness isn't naive, it's chosen. She's kind because she knows the cost of cruelty. She's gentle because she understands strength. When she forgives, it's not because she's blind to betrayal, it's because she refuses to carry bitterness. That grace confuses men who equate kindness with submission. They test her boundaries, and she holds them steady, not with aggression, but with clarity. That kind of calm strength can make anyone lose control because it reminds them what maturity actually looks like. She doesn't punish, she teaches, not through lectures but through example, how she communicates, how she holds space, how she corrects without belittling. She's not trying to prove she's better. She's just being herself. And that's what makes her influence so powerful, it's natural. She can shift a man's mindset just by existing in her truth. That's what men feel when they say they can't get her out of their head. It's not obsession, it's resonance. She awakens parts of them that have been sleeping. Of course, not every man handles that awakening well. Some become defensive. They accuse her of being too emotional, too guarded, or too demanding. But those words usually mean, I wasn't ready to meet myself through you. Because that's what she does, she becomes a mirror. Every insecurity, every unresolved wound, every ego-driven reaction shows up around her. And if he's not ready to face it, he'll run. But even when he runs, she doesn't chase. She lets him go with love, knowing that people only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. She doesn't personalize his fear. She understands it. That understanding is what sets her apart. She knows that control is an illusion, that connection can't be forced. She knows timing matters as much as chemistry. She knows love isn't always enough if growth isn't mutual. That kind of emotional intelligence is rare and intimidating because it requires accountability. Around her, men realize that charm isn't a substitute for character, and desire isn't proof of readiness. They realize that attraction is easy, but alignment takes work, and when a man is ready, truly ready, she becomes his peace, not his challenge. Because she doesn't need to test him or tame him. She's not interested in chaos. She's interested in connection. But he has to come correct. He has to meet her where she stands, not try to pull her down to where he's comfortable. That's the balance that scares most men. The awareness that they can't lead her through dominance, only through partnership. She's not impressed by power, she's drawn to purpose. So yes, men lose control around women like this, but it's not a loss in the negative sense. It's the unraveling of ego, it's the breakdown of performance, it's the first step towards something real. Because she doesn't just attract attention, she attracts transformation. She brings out honesty in those willing to be honest. She brings out fear in those who hide behind control, and whichever way it goes, she leaves people changed. That's her power, not in how many want her, but in how deeply she impacts those who meet her. Even when she's misunderstood, even when her strength is labeled as arrogance or her independence mistaken for loneliness, she remains steady. Because she knows who she is when no one's watching, that self-assurance is her armor and her peace. And that's the thing men feel before they can even name it, the rare, grounding presence of someone who doesn't need them to feel whole. It's not that she's unreachable, it's that she's complete. She carries herself like someone who's seen every version of herself and made peace with all of them. That's what steadies her energy. She's not pretending to be calm. She earned her calm. She's not performing strength. She built it. There's no mask left to hide behind. So when she speaks, there's a kind of groundedness that makes people lean in. It's not volume that holds the room. It's authenticity. And men, especially the ones used to surface-level connection, don't know how to process that. They expect games or drama or a chase. What they get instead is presence. That presence dismantles every script they came prepared with. She's not impressed by the usual tricks, the expensive car, the loud stories, the curated confidence. All of it slides right past her. Because she's seen it before. She's dated men who tried to buy her attention, flatter her into affection, or charm her into silence. It never worked for long. What gets through to her is truth. A man who admits when he's wrong. a man who asks instead of assumes, a man who can hold a conversation without trying to dominate it. When she meets that kind of energy, her guard doesn't vanish, but it softens. She relaxes a little. Her laughter becomes effortless. That's the version of her most men want, but few get to see. What most don't realize is that her independence wasn't born from pride, it was survival. She learned early that not everyone who loves you will protect you, and not everyone who wants you will value you. So she became her own safety. She built a life that didn't rely on someone else's approval. That kind of autonomy can intimidate men who define their worth through being needed. They don't understand that she's not rejecting help. She just doesn't depend on it. She doesn't need saving. She needs partnership. She needs someone strong enough to stand beside her, not in front of her. And that's a level of balance a lot of men aren't prepared for. But what's fascinating is how those same men keep coming back. They tell themselves they're done, that she's too complicated, too unpredictable. And yet, something about her energy pulls them in again. It's not magic, it's the contrast. She's unpredictable because she doesn't move out of insecurity. You can't control someone who's already chosen themselves. That kind of freedom is magnetic. Men feel it and start questioning why they don't feel that free themselves. It's uncomfortable, but it's also enlightening. She becomes a mirror not just of what they desire, but of what they are missing in themselves. If you ever watch her in a room, she's not the loudest, but somehow everyone knows where she is. Her energy fills space differently. It's confident but calm, warm but not overly inviting. She makes eye contact in a way that feels like she's reading something behind your words. And in a sense, she is. She's reading your tone, your pauses, your nervous habits. She's always observing, not out of calculation, but intuition. That sensitivity is what men mistake for mystery. It's not mystery, it's mastery. She's learned people deeply enough to recognize patterns before they repeat. And here's what many don't get. She still feels everything. She still gets nervous, still overthinks, still cares. But she's learned not to let emotion dictate her worth. She can love deeply without losing herself. She can desire someone and still walk away if it costs her peace. That's why she feels untouchable. Because she's not ruled by impulse. She's ruled by intention. When she chooses a man, it's not out of loneliness or validation. It's out of resonance. Something in her recognizes something in him. That kind of choice makes men lose their balance because they realize she doesn't need them. She wants them. And wanting is far more powerful than needing. When a man earns her trust, it's not a performance. She doesn't play coy. She's open, affectionate, transparent. But even then, she keeps a small part of herself sacred, not secret sacred, because she's learned that giving everything to someone else before they've earned it leads to emptiness. So she holds that space for herself. The right man will understand it. The wrong man will take it personally. That's usually the moment things unravel. He'll start to question her feelings, test her loyalty, demand proof of her affection. What he doesn't realize is that every time he asks her to prove something she's already shown, she detaches a little more. Her love doesn't thrive under pressure. It thrives under peace, and when she finally walks away, she does it quietly. No anger, no revenge, no speeches. Just distance, because she doesn't need closure when she's already found clarity. That silence, that unbothered exit, is what haunts men the most. They realize too late that she meant everything she said, and that her calm was never disinterest. It was self-control. They start replaying every moment, every choice, trying to pinpoint where they lost her. But the truth is, she doesn't leave suddenly. She leaves gradually, the moment she feels unseen. Her body stays for a while, but her spirit drifts long before her footsteps follow. There's something poetic about how she loves. She doesn't love to be completed. She loves to connect. She doesn't love to escape loneliness. She loves to share fullness. That's why her relationships feel different. They're not built on dependency. They're built on choice. Men sense that, and it throws them off balance because most relationships they've had were about transaction. Attention in exchange for affection. Ego in exchange for validation. With her, it's transformation. You can't just exist beside her, you grow beside her, and that's beautiful but also demanding. It requires accountability. It requires presence. What most men don't expect is how peaceful it feels to be around her once they stop trying to control the dynamic. When they stop competing, when they stop proving, when they simply show up, that's when connection happens. She doesn't need perfection. She needs honesty. If he can say, "I'm scared," or "I don't know," she meets him with softness, not judgment. But if he hides behind pride, she steps back. She's not punishing him. She's protecting her energy. Because she's done that work, the work of healing, forgiving, rebuilding, and she's not about to undo it for someone who hasn't started. Every man who meets her learns something, even if they never date her. Some learn humility, some learn patience, some learn what it feels like to be truly seen, and some just learn that control isn't connection. Whatever it is, she changes them. She shifts their understanding of what love can feel like. That's why they can't forget her, not because she was the most beautiful or the most affectionate, but because she was the most real. She has flaws like anyone else. She gets tired, makes mistakes, overthinks, sometimes pushes people away before they can leave. But she owns it. She doesn't hide behind the illusion of perfection, and that honesty is what makes her beautiful in a way that time can't touch. When she talks about her past, she does it with acceptance, not shame. When she forgives, it's not to reopen doors, but to lighten her heart. She's learned that peace isn't found in people, it's found in how she responds to them. Men sense that peace and crave it because it's something they can't buy, can't force, can't perform. It's something you have to become, and that's why they lose control around her. Not because she takes their power, but because she reveals how little of it they actually possess within themselves. She doesn't do it to diminish them. She does it just by existing as someone who's already found hers. That's what makes her unforgettable. She doesn't just attract men. She challenges them to grow. She doesn't just turn heads. She turns hearts toward introspection. She's not the storm. They are. She's the calm that exposes the chaos in them. And until they find that calm within themselves, they'll keep losing control every time a woman like her walks by. Attraction is one of those things we talk about like it's a choice, but it isn't. Not really. It's something that happens before we've had time to reason with it. You see someone, hear their voice, feel their presence, and something inside you shifts. It's not just chemistry, it's recognition. It's your body, your mind, your intuition, all quietly agreeing that something about this person matters. You can't explain it, and maybe that's the point. The moment you try to make sense of it, it starts slipping away. Real attraction isn't loud. It doesn't always show up with fireworks. Sometimes it's a quiet pull. You meet someone and the conversation feels easy. Their laugh lands softly in your chest. You start to notice details, the way they look away when they think, the rhythm of their speech, the stillness between their words. That's when you know it's more than appearance. It's energy meeting energy. You don't plan it and you can't fake it. People often confuse attraction with intensity, but they're not the same. Intensity burns fast. Attraction lingers. Intensity wants to consume, but attraction wants to understand. When you're truly drawn to someone, you don't just want them. You want to know them. You want to understand what shaped them, what calms them, what makes them feel seen. It's not about possession. It's about connection. It's not about who's in control. It's about alignment. There's something magnetic about people who are comfortable in their own skin. You can feel it the moment they walk in. They're not desperate to prove anything. They don't perform confidence. They embody it. That's the kind of energy that draws people in without trying. When you meet someone like that, it's not just how they look. It's how they make you feel. They give you space to breathe. They remind you that attraction doesn't have to be chaotic to be powerful. It can be calm, steady, and still consume you entirely. Attraction lives in contrast. It's in the balance between curiosity and comfort. You want to know more, but you also feel safe where you are. You feel seen but not exposed, excited but not anxious. That's rare. It's easy to find people who spark desire, but it's rare to find someone who sparks recognition. The kind that makes you feel like you've met before, maybe not in this lifetime, but somewhere. You can't explain why, but you don't question it. You just know. We like to think we control who we're drawn to, but most of it happens beneath the surface. It's the small things, the tone of their voice, the rhythm of their breath, the confidence in their stillness. It's how they make eye contact, how they hold silence without filling it with noise. Attraction grows in those pauses, not in the performance. Sometimes the most magnetic thing about a person is the peace they bring when they are near. It's funny how attraction can expose us. It shows us what we value and what we fear. Sometimes we're drawn to people who reflect the parts of us we've lost touch with. The free spirit, the quiet thinker, the grounded soul. Other times we're drawn to what challenges us, the mysterious, the disciplined, the deeply emotional. It's not random, it's a mirror. Who we're attracted to often says as much about us as it does about them. There's a quiet kind of power in not rushing attraction, in letting it unfold without forcing it. When you stop trying to define it or control it, you start to see it for what it is, a conversation between two energies. It's not always meant to last forever. Sometimes it's meant to wake you up, remind you what you're capable of feeling, what you're still open to. Every connection doesn't have to lead to permanence to be meaningful. Some people enter your life just to show you that your heart can still respond, that you're still alive inside. The strongest form of attraction is mutual awareness, when two people recognize something in each other that feels familiar and unspoken. You can sense when it's there, when they look at you like they've already read a few pages of your story. There's no pretending in those moments, no performance, just a simple acknowledgement that something is happening between you both, something real. Attraction also asks for balance. It's easy to lose yourself in someone else's energy if you haven't learned how to anchor your own. That's why people who are grounded are so magnetic. They're safe to be drawn to. They don't demand that you shrink to fit them. They don't take your space, they share it. True attraction allows you to remain yourself while exploring someone else. It's not about losing control, it's about finding rhythm. We tend to romanticize the chase, but real connection doesn't need pursuit. It needs presence. The most powerful relationships start when both people stop trying to impress and start showing up as they are. That's when attraction deepens into respect, because attraction without respect fades, but respect keeps attraction alive. When someone respects your time, your boundaries, your pace, the pull between you becomes stronger, not weaker. It's no longer just chemistry, it's connection with awareness. There's something timeless about two people who are attracted not only to each other's looks, but to each other's minds. When they can talk for hours and forget the world outside the conversation. When their laughter feels like music and their silence feels like home. That kind of attraction doesn't fade quickly. It matures. It grows with understanding. It becomes more about presence than performance. Attraction, at its best, doesn't demand, It invites, it doesn't take, it gives. It doesn't pressure, it allows. The moment you stop chasing validation through it, you start experiencing it in its purest form, mutual curiosity. That's when it becomes art, not transaction. Two people meeting each other with open eyes, open hearts, and open minds. No agenda, just recognition. Sometimes attraction isn't about what you see in someone, it's about how they make you see yourself. The way they make you feel more confident, more awake, more alive. They remind you of your potential, of the parts of you that have been quiet for too long. That's why some people stay with you even after they're gone. It's not that you miss them entirely. You miss who you were when you were near them, the version of you they helped you remember. And maybe that's the most honest thing about attraction. It's never just about the other person. It's about energy meeting energy, timing meeting readiness, awareness meeting awareness. It's about the places where two people overlap for a while, and how that overlap changes them both. Some connections last a lifetime, some last a moment, but none are accidental. Each one leaves something behind. A lesson, a reminder, a piece of truth about who you are and what you're drawn to. Real attraction doesn't end when distance begins. It lingers quietly. It becomes a memory, a thought that crosses your mind when you least expect it. Not out of longing, but gratitude. Gratitude for the spark, for the experience, for the reminder that your heart still recognizes beauty when it sees it. And maybe that's what attraction is meant to do, to remind us that no matter how much time passes, we're still capable of feeling deeply, noticing deeply, and connecting beyond the surface. In the end, attraction isn't something we can predict or measure. It moves in its own rhythm, showing up when we least expect it, and leaving when it's taught us what it came to teach. It reminds us that connection isn't something we manufacture, it's something we allow. The most powerful kind of attraction doesn't pull us out of ourselves. It brings us closer to who we really are. It doesn't demand that we change to be worthy of it. It asks that we become honest enough to meet it as we are. Attraction teaches balance. It shows us the difference between excitement and peace, between desire and respect. It challenges us to slow down and ask what we actually want from the people we invite close. Because while chemistry can draw us together, it's awareness that keeps us there. The spark may start it, but understanding sustains it. When two people can look at each other and see both beauty and truth, that's when attraction becomes something real, something steady enough to build on. Maybe that's what we're all searching for, not just someone who looks right beside us, but someone who feels right beside us. Someone whose energy matches ours in a way that makes both people grow. Real attraction isn't just about finding the right person. It's about being the kind of person who's ready for what real connection asks for: honesty, patience, openness. It's about doing the inner work so that when something genuine crosses your path, you recognize it. And when it happens, when attraction finds that rare balance of emotion, trust, and timing, it doesn't feel like losing control. It feels like alignment. It feels like being understood without having to explain every part of yourself. It feels like coming home to a place you didn't know you missed. That kind of connection doesn't take from you, it adds to you. It makes you more grounded, not more dependent. So if there's a lesson in all of it, it's that attraction is both mirror and teacher. It shows us what we value, what we fear, what we still need to heal. It reminds us that the pull we feel towards someone else often starts with something unresolved or unexpressed within ourselves. And when we understand that, attraction stops being confusing and starts being meaningful. In a world that moves too fast and treats connection like a game of strategy, It's worth remembering that the most magnetic people are the ones who are simply present, the ones who know who they are and move through life with quiet certainty. They don't chase and they don't control. They attract by existing fully. That's the real power of attraction, not the chaos it creates, but the clarity it brings. It's the quiet understanding that connection, at its best, doesn't take you away from yourself. It brings you closer to your truth and closer to the people who can meet you there.